This in the 99-part series. There is so much to unpack. All right, let's finish this. I got 3 episodes. I'm 3 episodes in. Web3 presents an opportunity to build an entirely new internet. Indeed. Entire new economies from scratch. The question then becomes, what kind of internet should we be creating? So now is where we get into the creative aspect of it. We're imagining, we're conceptualizing a reality in this Web3 metaverse that we can control. As conceptual animals, we will conceptualize what this could look like and then create mechanisms and methods and error-correcting methods to achieve the goal, the good, the value. Now we're getting creators, creative economy, creatives, which makes us as human beings, due to our conceptual consciousness, not our ignorance, but our ability to conceptualize what is good, to create. All that other stuff that we just talked about, all of it. You don't get the creativity. You don't get the conceptualization. In a veil of ignorance, you don't also get to conceptualize things. Right? You don't get to eat your cake and have it too. You are ignorant, you are ignorant. You are ignorant, you are ignorant. You can't say, I'm ignorant in all these matters, but in these other matters of how to create the future, I know here's what we should do with the veil of ignorance. It's just right. Am I the nutty one? Or is Rawls? We're creating. Creating by its very nature is the act of creation. The act of conceptualization to create a new reality different from the one that is metaphysically given. It's the thing that animals can't do. Not just a smart monkey, Sam Harris. Man, I'm not trying to go deep on you. But it's you and everyone else who shares your philosophy that we're just a little bit smarter monkey than the other monkeys. Completely untrue. Objectively untrue. That is objectively untrue. Objectively untrue. That is objectively untrue. I am talking to you now on this device. We are talking about Web3 because we are exceptional human beings. Because we are exceptional animals that we know of so far as we continue to understand reality through science and not your mysticism of a primary of consciousness, of a world that if it looked like this, then this might happen. If this, then that. But the this is not achievable in reality. Nature to be commanded must be obeyed. It's bacon, bacon, bacon. Just remember this. Everything is better with bacon. I'm just busting John Rawls' balls over here. That doesn't mean that maybe he didn't have other ideas that were good, but we need to look for integrations. I can't say I like John Rawls. I do like Lou Rawls, as we've. Sometimes someone has a good theory in one area, but his other areas of thought are not consistent. He has contradictions, or she has contradictions. And so just because you say, hey, I love John Rawls in this area, he may have other areas that you don't, but people, again, due to the complexity of these philosophies, the names, the obfuscations, We look how to integrate and look for truth, which means an integrated philosophy of metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, politics, aesthetics, creator economy, passion economy, aesthetics, 5 branches of philosophy. So we got to integrate. And veil of ignorance doesn't integrate for me as a practical, it doesn't integrate with me. That doesn't mean other things maybe he's talking about aren't valid if they integrate, but it's got to integrate. And traditionally things that are this far off don't integrate. That's why you need a system. It's all about identification and differentiation. What is it? How do I know it? It's different. What do I know about it? Your epistemology on your metaphysics. So when we talk about whys and what ifs, and when we totally change metaphysics and assume a complete different metaphysics, and then try to then say we're rational and apply rationality to a separate metaphysics, it's all got to integrate. And that's where we need to look. You see truth in it, and you've integrated it and are differentiating it and refining it and expanding it in your context of human knowledge, like when we talked about Rawls. 71, 50 years, half a century, fantastic. Now, while it hasn't been around that long, it is the most current, it is currently contextual thinking on problems that have plagued humanity. History of philosophy, of understanding all of it. So you have the greatest context of it. So to any philosopher who doesn't look at the history of the thought and how it evolved and then come to a contextual conclusion as of me at this point, stripping it of all context, and then putting out a philosophy that doesn't integrate, that doesn't have, what are your premises? State your premises, and let's discuss premises. Let's error correct. But you're taking things out of context, stealing concepts, speaking in language that is not clear and is a little more confusing as we'll get to. Let's get to it. This in the 99-part series, The Web 3.0, A Theory of Justice, the Substack. What internet should we be creating? Some might say that Web 3 is young. Some might say. Subjective language. I don't want to get this deep. Some might say that Web 3 is young. Give us a number. Web 3 is X old. Just give us a number. And these issues will simply work themselves out over time. But questions about impacts and externalities were left too late in the design of Web 2, with consequences ranging from election manipulation to widespread vaccine misinformation. Some indicators show that early design choices in Web 3 are replicating or compounding the inequalities of Web 2 and the real world. There is so much to unpack for me as I enjoy this content. Thank you again for doing it. Helping. I'm learning so much right now for myself. Some might say, note that language, that Web 3 is young. Yeah, in the context of human history, give us an objective number, not subjective. It would, just some thought experiment. This is a thought experiment. And these issues, the issues we're going to discuss, will simply work themselves out over time. We fixed the glitch. The glitch. It'll just take care of itself. Thank you, Bob's. Content reference. You know that. Do you not? Leave it. Tell me. So much to unpack. Is young. These issues will simply work themselves out over time. Is that what people are saying? Is people saying like, fuck it, man, it'll all work out? Which, ironically, is probably the right answer. Honestly, that's probably the right answer in the first fucking paragraph. No more cursing. It's just crude. I'm enjoying myself. Do you curse when you enjoy yourself? Sometimes. Answer right there. And that these issues will simply work themselves out over time. Evolution, yeah, they will. Without over trying to put your finger on it too much. I mean, what are we trying to do here? What is the role of a government? But questions. But. Nothing good comes after but, Dale Carnegie. But questions about impacts, the effects, and externalities on metaphysics to what effects it's going to have on the rest of the world were left too late in the design of Web 2. In the design of Web 2, the forefathers didn't think about it till it was too late. You know, you're creating technology that's changing the world and platforms for human communications and network effects and everything why we're here. Where'd the platforms come from? Where'd the platforms come from? We got concepts. Where did they come from? They came. Primacy of consciousness, intrinsic knowledge versus experience, logic, reason, man's method of cognition. Effects of the design and externalities, shit we can't control, Marcus Aurelius, were left too late in the design of Web. We're left too late. Like there was all these guys designing and girls designing Web 2, the people, and they didn't think about it. And the consequences have ranged from, and it's their fault that this shit happened. 1, election manipulation. When that is said, the question is, what do you think election manipulation was? Defining an election. You're throwing out this thing like election. All right, you're just throwing fucking controversial bombs out there, and blaming the platforms for it. It's just a tool, Miriam. It's just a tool. To widespread vaccination misinformation. I mean, come on, man. What are we talking about? We're talking about Web3. We're talking about future creative economies. And you're saying that platforms are manipulating information, and you're mentioning some very political hot buttons for the sake of, let's talk about the issues. Let's talk about, I don't know, man. I could go down that road. Some indicators show, click, we could go to, some indicators show, hindsight's 2020, that early design choices, people who are in Web 3 are replicating the compounding inequality. So we're going to do what we did in Web 2. Hey man, it looks like we're going to do the same thing. Now, that's if we want Web 3 to make good on the promise that it can materially improve the situations of everyone in italics within the ecosystem, and not just a handful of people at the top. We need to design it according to principles that will make that happen. Okay, the first thing that you said that I agreed with is that we need to use principles to design what we're trying to achieve. Like the principles of science, and the principles of error correction, and the principles of alignment of incentives, and the principles of buffering, and the principles of people acting in their rational self-interest, and the principles of metaphysics, and the principles of reality, and the principles of thought experiments versus principles are things that have been acted upon and learned through the action taking, and that science is an error-correcting mechanism, and that Web 3 is an evolution of Web 2, not a replacement of. It's an evolution, as is everything we know in the context of our human history. You don't just throw it out and start again. Now you do have knowledge. Now you already do have knowledge through experience, what worked and what didn't work. Context, like John Rawls had in 1971 when he wrote about his philosophy, he had the context of 20 centuries, the history of human thought to go through and to generate a system of philosophy. And this is what he's given us. Buffering. Come on, man. If we want Web3 to make good on the promise that it can materially improve the situations of everyone within the ecosystem, if we want, this is what we want. Okay, what do we all want? Web3, the future of the internet, to make good, but we don't know what good is, so we're in the veil of ignorance. To make good, what is good, on the promise, somebody who's a promiser. Who's the promiser? A promise presupposes one doing the promising, the promiser, the object acting. The promise is the act, and then the promiser is the object doing the action. Who's the promiser in this thought experiment? To make good on the promise that it can materially improve the situations of everyone within the ecosystem. The promise of Web3 and those designing it are that it will materially improve the situations of everyone within the ecosystem. Materially improve, which Web2 has done. Agree? Web2 has done. Agree? Web2 has if Web2 has materially improved your life, agree or disagree? If Web2 has materially improved your life, agree or disagree? As I enjoy this content. Thank you again for doing it. Bad buffering.